Good evening and welcome to the Discover series of the Online Wine Tasting Club. Alex has yet a wonderful, delightful shirt.
It's kind of modelled on Portuguese tiles. That was the kind of inspiration I was going for. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but I'm just hoping that people are online and can see us. Do say hello in the chat if you can see us,
And if you can't see us, you're lucky.
You can't tell that.
Absolutely. So. But anyway, we are back to Portugal. For those of you who have been with us from the beginning, you will see we've done many Portuguese things. We did a tie-in with the wine show. We've done a previous tasting. We've had multiple ports and things like that as we go through. So we have decided to go back.
No need for that, is there?
There is, yeah. You need to get yourself sorted out, sunshine. Get yourself dressed before the world goes on. So anyway, so we are going back to Portugal because it is such a wonderful place with so many options, so many different things that you can drink. And it is also Portuguese Wine Month. So the lovely people at Wines of Portugal have sent a bunch of bits and pieces to me. So there's lots of fun stuff going on. But what's really important is drinking the wine. So we've got 6 different wines from 5 different areas, and yet we do have a port at the end because you can do a Portuguese tasting without a port. But hopefully, there's a lot of things that we can look at within Portugal that show the different styles, the different things that are going on with it, and try some really, really fun, cool stuff. But, get your comments in the chat. Let us know what you think. And the lovely Caroline is unfortunately unable to be with us here tonight. So Alex is playing producer, presenter, host, and probably head wine drinker. So if he's glancing away, it's not that he's not.
Not that I'm being rude.
He's not being rude. He's just trying to keep an eye on the chat. So make sure you get any of your questions and stuff like that in. But anyway, first things first. Let's get wine number 1 in the glass. And we've been very grown up this week. We've decided that we're just going to we'll use our pouches like everybody else rather than do a full bottle.
We have indeed, and we had a bit of a comment like, you've got this great wine in the pouches. How come you get to drink all the bottle? That's not fair. So it's a fair point. We do want to practice what we preach, and that this is enough for 2 people to share, especially if you're having to present at the same time. So Portugal, amazing place. What I'm slightly struggling with is getting the video to share because it's telling me that I can't do that in Safari, which is great news. We're very professional here, and I might need to find a crafty solution for how to do that. So you talk about Portugal. What defines it as a winemaking country? Is it port? Is it Madeira? But it's only wine.
All of the above.
All of the above.
I think what's really important about port is that if you look, it's a very skinny country. Yeah, very skinny, and it goes from north to south. And there's lots of different areas, lots of different regions. You've got these cool coastal regions. You've got these warm inland regions. You go a little bit further south, it gets warmer. You go a little bit further north, it gets cooler. So therefore, you've got this ability to make a huge breadth of wines. And I think sometimes, and you'll see a little bit later as we've got a couple of interviews, that Portugal kind of goes, oh, I don't like Portuguese wine, or I do like Portuguese wine, and we don't really look at it. We don't go, oh, I don't like French wine, because there's Burgundy, there's Rhone, there's Bordeaux, there's huge amounts of different things going on. And Portugal, you've got to look at that as well. And, we're going to be in the Dow today. We're going to be up in the Douro. We're going to be in the Alentejo. We're going to be a little bit all over Portugal. So the first one we've got in the glass, this is from Santo Indricio, and this is the Pegues winery. And these are down in Setúbal. So you're going Lisbon. And what's great about this region that I absolutely love is most times you go into, wine country, and you go out into the middle of nowhere, and you've got to drive for 3 hours to get into the vines, into the fields. This area is literally across the bridge from Lisbon. You can work in Lisbon and go over the bridge and get out into wine country in your lunch hour.
Which doesn't sound too shabby. I mean, we can obviously go to a winery quite quickly, but yeah, it's not quite the same, is it? Being able to do that in Portugal as going to Tring Winery. But
absolutely. And the other thing that Portugal should have on its side, but sometimes doesn't, is it's got a huge number of indigenous grapes. And sometimes the same grape is called different things. And I've gone on and on, in our Spanish tasting about Tempranillo has a different synonym, whichever part of the world that you get into. Tempranillo and Centibal and all that kind of stuff. And this is a grape called Fernão Pires, which is absolutely beautiful. It's light, it's summery, it is sunshine in a glass.
I like that comment. Like a lemon posset.
Ooh,
Yes.
yeah, I'll have a lemon
Yeah,
posset.
the creaminess really makes you feel that beautiful effect.
But you might see this in other parts of the country called Maria Gomez. And Maria Gomez is not the name of the lady who makes it, but someone was it. I know.
No,
yeah,
that's
I know.
just put there to confuse
Yeah,
me.
I know Maria Gomez. No, you don't. Not a person. It's a grape.
I had this wonderful moment of utter stupidity, and this is because I don't speak Spanish. And
well, good job in Portugal, then.
Well, yeah, Spanish or Portuguese, but I went to. It's relevant. It's relevant.
Okay,
I went to Cuba, where they do speak Spanish, and I just walked around like saying to Naomi, my wife, who is this Ron guy who makes all this rum? It's amazing. And I had absolutely no idea that Ron meant rum. So there you go, Maria Gomez, perhaps a more acceptable one than Ron, but yeah.
Slowly, bit by bit. But,
little.
it's kind of fun. Have you finished playing with your tech? Can we let people know? Nice.
I have no idea. I can give it a try. I can certainly give it a
Okay.
try. I think we might get some inception going on here in a while, but hopefully...
We're going to pop you a little video telling you all about Portugal.
Yeah, we're going to give it a go. Yes.
This is what happens when you move back to the winery, isn't it?
Well, it's what happens when you don't have
your
producer, that's for sure. So, yeah, I'm actually not convinced we're going to get it to work. And everything's... We appear to have frozen. Okay, I'm going to... I hope we're back. Sorry about that. We've been having all sorts of wonderful IT issues here. It's great being live, isn't it? I'll switch back to the other camera. So that's cool. So we can now go over there. And audio as well. So I hope you can hear us again. Sorry about this, guys. This isn't our usual slick brand of professionalism.
No, it's close to
it, though, isn't it? But what I should be able to do now is to get the video to work. So let's... let us do the video, and we can talk all about wonderful Portugal and
in a more slick way,
slightly more slick
with a video.
Indeed. Okay, enjoy the video. We visited Portugal in one of our first ever tastings, and we were delighted to introduce some of its lesser-known wines. 6 months later, we revisited the area with our friends at the wine show and their host, Joe Fattorini, who extolled the virtues of this incredible country that they spent a lot of weeks filming in. Now, since then, and we're not claiming credit for this, but we were definitely ahead of the curve, there has been a seismic shift in the recognition of Portugal as a top wine country for still wines. It's not just the famous fortified ones any longer. And perhaps that's not a surprise. Britain has had a long relationship with Portugal, and so many of us travel there every year. We're well aware of its winemaking heritage. Visiting Porto, taking trips on the River Douro, and are always on the itinerary of so many who travel to this country.
There are also stunning sites all along the Algarve, and they make wine. Deep, rich reds from Syrah and native varieties, so I was initially at a bit of a loss with what to do with this video. But it didn't take long to get inspiration, because while we may know the beaches and golf resorts fjords of the south and the colourful buildings of Lisbon, there's an awful lot to get to know in between, and it is a place full of surprising drama and history, as we will find out. Obviously, being so far south of the wine-growing regions of France, it's a pretty hot place, but for such a small country by area, Portugal goes from really hot in its south to much cooler in the northeast, both by virtue of latitude, but also as it rises in the mountains. It also has a disproportionate amount of coastline, which of course influences the weather. While sheltered along its south coast, the west is battered by wind and waves from the Atlantic, not to mention the occasional tsunami. This, after all, is why it's one of the best places to go surfing in the whole world. It's home to the largest wave ever ridden. But there is a whole life on the inside of the country where fewer of us have dared to venture. From mountaintop fortified towns, the canals of Aveiro, the temples of Evora, the forests of Sintra, it is captivating and colourful. When it comes to wine, the British generally associate Portugal with the fortified wines of Port and Madeira, not to mention sweet rosé in oddly shaped bottles. But with a country with such history and over 500 indigenous grape varieties, there's a lot more to the story. Plus, the British have not just a unique perspective, but an incredibly important part to play in this story. For the history of Portuguese wine has been influenced by its relative isolation in the world's wine market, with the one notable exception of the British. Wine's been made here since at least 2000 BC, when the Tartessians planted vines in the Sardo and Tagus valleys. By the 10th century BC, the Phoenicians had arrived and introduced new grape varieties and winemaking techniques to the area. Up until this point, vineyards were mostly centred on the southern coastal areas. In later centuries, the ancient Greeks, Celts and Romans would do much to take winemaking further north. Portuguese wines were first shipped to England in the 12th century, and in 1386, Portugal and England signed the Treaty of Windsor, followed in 1703 by the Methuen Treaty, effectively a free trade agreement giving Portuguese wines preferential treatment in Britain and its colonies over French wines. At first, the English merchants arrived in the Vinho Verde region, but found the wines too thin and astringent, so travelled inland along the River Douro. Here they found dark red wines made by fast and furious fermentation in the inland heat. These were known in London as blackstrap wines. But the wines didn't survive the journey too well, so to fix this, merchants started adding brandy to stabilise them before shipment. Fortified wines like these, known as port, were increasing in popularity in Britain as they could be shipped all around the world. The lucrative trade in port prompted the Portuguese authorities to create one of the world's first protected wine areas, establishing boundaries and regulations for the production of authentic port from the Douro in 1756. The boundaries were marked out with stones. For much of the 19th century, Portugal's vineyards were affected by disease, so many growers resorted to planting high-yielding and disease-resistant grape varieties. However, they were not such good quality. Come 1937, the Portuguese government established a huge new programme of cooperatives, but these were inflexible and the wine standard continued to deteriorate. Against this backdrop, in the late 20th century, sweet, slightly sparkling rosé brands, Mateus being the most notable, became immensely popular around the globe, with the British wine market again leading the way. From the mid-1980s, a flood of grants from other European countries to the stagnant wine industry paved the way for upgrades in technology and facilities. This in turn motivated wine estates to cut their ties with cooperatives and start concentrating on making their own wines, focusing on what was unique in Portugal and making it better. Portugal now has 13 official wine-growing regions, with Minho, famous for Vinho Verde, and Transmontana, making full-bodied reds in the north. The Terrache de Cister, the monks who planted in Burgundy, planted grapes which now make brilliant sparkling wines. Then there is the Douro, the home of port, the Dow, and as far south as the Algarve, and of course Madeira, making unique fortified wines. The other part of the winemaking industry that Portugal is really famous for is their cork forests in the Algarve, used not only as closures for billions and billions of bottles of wine, but also by NASA when building the space shuttles. Most of the natural cork in the world comes from Portugal still. With that said, port is still the main player in the region, accounting for 70% of Portugal's total wine production. Of course, we had to finish tonight with a port, and a cracking one at that. But we have 5 other wines from all over this country to show how it can do everything from young, fresh whites to elegant reds, as well as the famous fortified wines. So let's get back to the studio and get on with the tour.
Apparently we're on mute again. I don't know why I didn't push mute, but there we are. Welcome back. Yes, sorry about that. So this is a delicious wine, lots of flavours of peach. We were just saying that it's not the sort of wine that perhaps you'd be going out to seek out as just to drink on its own. But if you're having a glass of it in the sunshine, well,
Absolutely, it's bright, it's fresh, it's delicious. It's a lot of people summery lemon posset. It is that sunshine in a glass esque kind of thing. I think it's absolutely delicious. But the tasting notes are exactly what they are. You know, they are those kind of like simple, bright, fresh, fruit forward,
Yeah.
drinkable wines.
Let's make it a bit bigger so we can see some of those other ones. Sun-dried tomato was one that I spotted, and that is really interesting.
So what's the difference between a lemon and a limon? That's not just being overly cultural.
It's very cultural. I like it.
I like that. Sun-dried tomato. You do have that slight little bit of leafiness in there, a little bit. But yeah, citrus, lime, fragrant, zesty. We've got cream and creamy. It's got that touch of richness about it. Not loads of it, but it's got that kind of little bit of weightiness. Summer. Whoever put summer in there.
Summer. It's just summer, isn't it? Summer in a glass, and that's what we want. That's what this is all about. You can just imagine yourself down on the Algarve with a glass of that, sitting on the balcony, the beautiful waves of the ocean. In fact, many of you probably have been off to foreign countries a bit more than we have. But I love that, and I would say, right, food-wise, I mean, I'd be typically going with Portugal with sort of seafood, wouldn't you? But I don't know. It's kind of.
I'm probably seafood on that. I'm probably food, scallops or something like that. So it's got a little bit more weight about it.
It's not into that sort of, the classic kind of Portuguese, your bacalhau, the kind of cod.
Yeah, bacalhau or calamari or something like that. This needs a little bit more.
It needs a bit more, something,
about it.
Yeah.
Lobster.
Lobster would be, well, I mean, you're never going to say no to lobster, are you? I mean.
Oh, and if you've got a shellfish allergy, you might.
Fair point.
That's what I've got.
Well, so probably people, because of our spannering around with the mechanics of this, probably people are moving on to wine number 2. Let us know if you would like to at all. But I've just one last tasting it there, limoncello. Yeah, I like that because you've got that fruitiness that you kind of you get from that limoncello.
And you can't say better than taking lemons and making them more alcoholic. So take that all that great lemon flavour and add alcohol. I'm very impressed with that.
Shall we look at where we are in the world on this? Let's just bring up the map.
We're near Spain.
We are near Spain. Well done, thank you. So here we are, like we said, just down near Lisbon. We're quite close to the coast. It's a great little thing. So if you're looking in that kind of light blue area, that's where we are talking about. Now there is. Obviously, we are now heading for wine 2, a little bit further north. Oh, I've Mike Wazowski'd you. It's been a while.
That's good.
Yeah, we're heading up to the Dow Valley. So this is another one of the classic valleys that defines Portugal, really. And you've got these big rivers that cross it, haven't you?
Absolutely, and you've a lot of the rivers. Obviously, Spain has got, people see this, you see a map of Spain and it's got this bit cut out and you go, oh, is that the ocean? No, that's Portugal. So all these rivers to get into Spain, a lot of them have to come through Portugal. So you've got, especially as you get near inland, you've got similar climates, you've got similar things going on. But the Dow's great because it sits almost best of both worlds because you're coming inland, so you've still got that moderating factor of the ocean and the breeze. You're not a million miles away, but you get a little bit warmer, so you can get a bit more ripeness, a bit more richness. But what we'll see, I yabber on it until like the cows come home regularly. But we can start talking about altitude and how the importance of having warmth during the day and then having altitude to be a little bit cooler at night is hugely important to the styles of wine that people can make. So you can keep that balance, that acidity, that freshness, but still having
that's what we want.
A lovely, rich wine. You don't have to have just zippy acidity and nothing, and you don't have to have big, flabby, I can't speak, overblown kind of styles. You can get best of both worlds out of a lot of styles in Portugal.
I'm not saying it because I'm too nice. It's my New Year's resolution.
Yes.
Number 2 is a richer, more kind of wintry, more foodie style of wine. And it's a massive contrast when you think you haven't travelled that far inland, but the climate's quite different. We're going a little bit further north, which should cool it down a bit, but we're going inland, which warms it up. So it kind of balances out. But this is a very different style of wine.
So
It's made from butterflies, isn't it?
Oh, it says
From the
Mariposa on the label.
Yeah.
It makes you, for anyone with young kids, it just wants to make you sing, some Encanto songs again.
I agree, but we've done enough of those kind of things. But I mean, yeah.
So-
you could drink this at Christmas. I
So
think.
this is a grape called Encruzado. So it's another indigenous grape.
Mhm.
And when grapes are indigenous, they're their own thing. It's nice to go, this is its own thing. It stands alone. But if you had to go, what else is this like in the world? It almost reminds me a little bit, almost Burgundian, Maconi, that kind of southern Burgundy, where you have that little bit more richness, that Chardonnay-y kind of feel about it, bit of toastiness about it. But the winemakers here, they started in Portugal and then they went round the world making wine, France, New Zealand, all over, and then they've come back together to their hometown, and the winery is the old dance hall where they met when they danced together when they were kids. So it's kind of like this urban winery kind of feel, but a nice little bit of history, which is kind of fun.
I think so. And I think one of the cool thing about this is, you won't find sort of Encruzado in a massive millions of places. Portugal has perhaps one of the widest range of kind of a variety of different grapes there that have just been kind of growing next to each other in fields, and nobody really knew what they were until modern kind of science came along, and so they started testing them. It was like, this vineyard they thought was all one thing has now got so many different things in it, and so people are really trying to explore what makes Portugal Portugal and finding these cool grapes that make something that's absolutely delicious.
Absolutely. So there's a question there, has it been oak? There's a little bit of oak on there, but being the online wine tasting club, I'm going to go online and just see if I've actually got the exact oak regime on here. So there we are. It's done in 6 months in 500 litre French oak barrels, of which 30.
That's quite big for an oak barrel, like relatively.
It's like double the size
double
of your kind of standard one. And 33% of that oak is new, so they have a mix of new oak and used oak. It's nice. I'm just not pulling stats out my ears and hoping for the best. I thought let's have the thing in front of us.
It's so light. It is. It's a very light, refreshing wine. It's not. There are some pretty heavy wines from that kind of style. But I've just got to bring this up because the tangy tinned pears kind of thing is I love getting tasting notes from you guys because
tinned pears soaked in booze.
Yeah.
We should just have that instead.
Tinned pear soaked in booze.
Just have that. Don't need any wine. But I think there's a really good point from Thomas Jenkins on there that says he prefers the first one, but the second one's lovely. I think with these two things, they both sit in a different part of the world of when you would drink them. This, am I going to sit and drink 12 gallons of it by itself? Yes, because it's me. But the average man on the street is probably this cries out for a little bit of food. Either this would go nicely with a cheese board, something cheddar that's got a little bit of saltiness to it. This and I think kind of like a pork dish with like apple cider or something like that would be fantastic. That has that richness and complexity. And that is, as the comment there, it's a bit more complex. And if you like that complexity in your wine, this is going to be a little bit more for you. Whereas if you just like fresh, drinky, zippy delightfulness, summary one, that's that. And that is the joy of being able to taste these wines and go, hey, I love this. Great. I want all of it. Or, hey, that's not for me. And there's nothing wrong with that.
We like to talk about getting your wine confidence up. Like if I was sat in I've been studying wine for goodness knows how long, and I'd still never heard of Encruzado as a grape. If I now sit in a Portuguese restaurant and it says there, this is an Encruzado, I know where it sits, whether I like it or not. And that's what all this is about.
But I think, especially when you go to a new region, I'm sure there's some absolute Portugal master knows of everything on here. We've got some really, really, really great people who know loads of stuff, and we get loads of stuff back in. But you could sit down and go, Encruzado, is that the grape? Is that the region? Is that the winemaker? Where does this fit?
And who's wrong?
Wine? Who is wrong? yeah, Encruzado by Maria Gomez. You could have
exactly. Yeah.
So having that and being able to put these words that you see on a label of a wine list into place, I hope it helps you guys a little bit for what's going on.
And that's this I can certainly see more with like a lot of that really traditional kind of Portuguese seafood, I think, would be just brilliant with that. So I wish I had some right now. I didn't have time to eat. So I like this comment as someone who's new to wine. So welcome. Easy to drink, and that is always a great thing, because ultimately we can evaluate these wines all day long, but it's a drink.
To be fair, if you only want half a glass, I'm not going to make very much money selling it, am I?
No, that's true.
You need to have it by the gallon.
If you buy the
barrel.
bottles of this, you will find it has this beautiful treatment. It's got a really pretty. Should I get it? I'll get the bottle.
Look at that. It's like, here's one I bought
now
earlier.
it's obviously it's quite hard to see some things, but you see this beautiful foil effect that shows off the butterfly wings. So, everyone loves a good butterfly. So, a very pleasant wine and good for the summer too.
Fantastic. So that's our whites. Probably time to move on to a little red.
Do we want to have our? Well, I mean, obviously we're very lucky this time because we've got some interviews with the winemakers, which it's been a while. Everyone got overdosed on Zoom interviews. I think it's fair to say.
Yes, and winemakers were allowed back out into the wild again to go and meet real people in real places, and so there's been a huge amount of kind of like in-person dinners and trade shows. For those who are in the trade, you might know it's London Wine Fair this week, so lots of people around and about. It's California Eureka tasting this week, so we're starting to see some more people, and hopefully that's going to start working for me. We've done a couple of in-person interviews for some stuff that's coming up in the future for the Online Wine Tasting Club in the winery, so we've actually had these side-by-side interviews rather than over the top of Zoom. So what we're hoping is that kind of brings a little bit more personality in. Fingers crossed we might actually be out in some vineyards next week.
I mean, I was in the pub last night, right outside Olympia in Kensington, and I suddenly realised that the guy I was chatting to was the guy who makes two of the wines in our next tasting. The only way is Essex, which is great, and we've met so many of the winemakers, which is just great to actually finally put some names to faces
and you have to listen to us less and to the winemakers more.
Yeah, that's true.
That's really the key.
Well, so okay, for anyone who wants to get wine number 3 into a glass, whenever you're ready, pop onto wine number 3. We'll do that, and all I have to do is try to work out which one of these two interviews. No, they're still processing because apparently that's the thing. Going well tonight.
Okay, so we'll get wine number 3 in the glass.
Wine number 3 tonight, and we can start to have a chat about it while it is whatever processing is. Does anyone know what these things are in the world of technology? I don't. I spent years before I retrained as a winemaker, which for those of you who do know, it was a big change for me because I was in sort of the world of designing mobile phones and computers and things. And I went down to Plumpton in Sussex, and that's just kind of northeast of Brighton, surrounded by some of the best wineries in the country. And it was a massive sort of change. But I got to finally meet some of the people yesterday for the first time who were on my course, but because of COVID, I had never actually had the chance to meet. So wine number 3.
So we are staying in the Dow, hanging out in the Dow still. And there's this Quinta dos Cavallas. So the Tinta Reserva 2017 vintage. So
a nice bit of age on this.
There is a nice bit of age on it, and it's all indigenous grapes. So your Touriga Nacional, Alfredo, and some Tinto Roriz. And Tinto Roriz is the same as Tempranillo for all the people who like to have a little bit of Tempranillo. So these are grapes that you generally find in port. Yeah, so you do have these indigenous grapes that get their kind of name from being in port. So you'll find this richness, this ripeness, but with it not being fortified and not keeping the sweetness in, you're starting to get, especially with this 2017, this beautiful kind of like tertiary characteristics. So
what's a tertiary characteristic for the people at home who haven't studied WSET things?
So it's after secondary characteristics, number 3.
Very helpful.
So we've got primary fruits, which are, and this wine does a really good example of being able to find all those things.
Okay, so let's talk about the way that the profile of a wine.
So if we do,
you don't have to care about this, but if you want to be on a wine tasting, you probably might want to care a little bit about this.
So I'm not going to do the whole full blown WSET malarkey with this, But when we look at flavors in red wines, we look at them in really three different levels. We have our primaries, which are our fruit flavors. So if we're talking what's on the tasting notes right now, our cherries, our strawberries, our plums, our blackcurrants, all those kind of things. Those are our primary things, the things that smell of and taste of fruit. And these can be stewed, they can be baked, they can be that kind of stuff.
Candied,
Yeah, so you can chunk,
start with the group of fruits.
Extra, yeah. Is it red fruit? Is it black fruit? And then what red fruit is it? Is it raspberry? If it's raspberry, is it fresh raspberry? Is it raspberry jelly or jello, depending if I'm going back to the States. So you go from there. We then have our secondary. And secondary is the kind of the winemaking techniques. So if you get things like clove and cedar, let's just say wood. If you get woody, that's an idea that it's been put in wood, therefore a barrel. So you get that, and when you talk about white wines, you get that vanilla, that butterscotch, that brioche, those kind of things, which is either down to a little bit of oak or them kind of leaving it on the lees, which is all the bits left in the bottom to give it a bit of a stir, bit of texture, done with that.
Sounds a bit disgusting. Makes some delicious flavours, it turns out.
And then when we go a little bit further on, we then have our tertiary, which are our developmental characteristics, which sometimes are very, very weird things, because we make comments about things that don't really sound particularly delightful, like forest floor or graphite or pencil shavings, but when we chuck them into a wine tasting note, it sounds all right. But these things like the tobacco, the leather, the mocha, that kind of stuff is what we get when we go into our
it's not massively tertiary. On this one.
On here, that smokiness is what you've got in there.
Give.
So toffee is one of those tertiary flavours.
Yeah, because if you think about your toffee,
if we have a look through in here, just while I can see it, we go. We've got these things. So we've got cherry, we've got blackcurrant, we've got stewed strawberries, which are all our primary characteristics. Then we've got vanilla, oak, and those are our secondaries.
Yep.
And then we've got the
toffee,
the smoke,
tobacco,
which is those kind of tertiary characteristics. So you get to kind of see what's going on.
And so that makes quite a complex wine here. And, that's a lot of people say, why would you age a wine, or what wines can age? And those are both great questions. And why would you age a wine? It's to develop these new flavours alongside the other ones, and the fruit flavors do develop and change a bit as well, but you're creating entirely new flavors. That's like making a new recipe which has a whole bunch more different spices in it, and that's cool.
I think what's important here, I say important, I think it's important, everyone else might think it's a complete waste of time. People say, should I age this wine? How long should this wine age for? How long can this wine age for? Any of those kind of things, it depends how you like your wine. That's what's really important. If you like it fresh and fruity and jammy, you don't want to age it because you want to have those primary characteristics. Yeah. If you like your wine to be earthy and dusty and spicy and tobacco-y and leathery,
which works well with some things like truffled risotto.
Yeah, and a lot of Bordeaux's end up doing that kind of thing. You can do that as well. And if you like somewhere in the middle, you can have somewhere in the middle. So it doesn't always mean that an older wine is better and a younger wine is less good.
And some wines just can't age at all. They don't have anything that's going to age well in them. So
if you've not got the primary fruit to start with, because that primary flavours turn into the tertiary. Yeah. So if you've not got that, and you've not got acidity, and you've not got tannin, and you've not got that stuff that can develop, it's just going to go a bit naff. My general, fruity Shiraz off the shelf from, bulk buy, that's designed to be drunk and fresh and go, And we work with some great winemakers whose wines, they just unashamedly say, this isn't for this. Yeah. Like Tom at Paso Primera is like, open it, drink it, get on with it. Yeah. And then get some more. Not, let's keep this for 10 years and see what happens.
I think I've worked out a crafty way to just hear a quick few words from what the winemaker. So shall we give her a go?
Yeah, let's pop over to see what Beatrice had to say.
All right.
So I began at Sograp in 2007. I began in Vinhos in Herdade do Peso, our winery in Alentejo. But then in 2011, in the end of 2011, because the previous winemaker will be retired, the company needs someone to face the challenge at Quinta dos Carvalhais. So I decided to accept this challenge, and I began in 2012, and then I was with the previous winemaker for 2 years, 2012 and 13, and in 14 I began completely alone at Quinta dos Carvalhais.
Dow is a beautiful region, beautiful place. What makes it special, and what grapes grow particularly well in the Dow?
Yeah, Quinta dos Carvalhais is a property that belongs to Sograp Vinhos, and Sograp bought it in 1998. No, 1988. I'm sorry, bought Quinta dos Carvalhais in 1988. And began making wines at Quinta dos Carvalhais in 1990. There was no winery, and the winery was all built by Sograp Vinhos, and also some of the vineyards that we have there now. The property has 100 hectares, but only 50 with vineyards. And the grape varieties we have growing there are Touriga Nacional, Tinta Roriz, Alfrocheiro, and Jahan to the reds. And to make the white wines, we have Encruzado, Gouveia, and Semillon. In both reds and white grape varieties, we have a field blend spot or plot where we grow a mix of different grape varieties, red and white, from down region.
So the wine we've got on the tasting is the 2017 Reserva, which is a blend of purely indigenous grapes. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. Quinta dos Carvalhais is near Serra da Estrela, the highest mountain in Portugal, and it is a place. We are in a plateau, surrounded for 5 different mountains, and it is a place where it rains a lot in the winter, and it is very dry and hot in summer. And Quinta dos Carvalhais is surrounded by that mountains, but also for pine trees, oak trees, some eucalyptus, some cedars, and there are some
sense of place that you can tell exactly where the power, which ones add the finesse, and why this particular blend?
Because the Touriga Nacional is one of the most known Portuguese grape varieties and has a very good behavior in down and also at Quinta dos Carvalhais, of course. And it is a very rich in flavor and structure that gives a lots of fruit and but also some sous-bois to the blend. And then we have Tinta Roriz that give us the structure and also some wild fruit. And then we have the Alfrocheiro, that is a very gentle grape variety that makes very beautiful and elegant wines. That is the main force here between the Touriga Nacional and the Tinta Roriz that help us to join all the grape varieties and turn it more homogeneous and gave also that elegance and that finesse in the mouth, and some wild fruit as well, and some sous-bois and forest kind of aromas.
Absolutely, it's just wonderful. I just want to sit and keep drinking it, but that's dangerous at this time of the morning. So with the 2017 vintage, and how was that as a vintage? And were you on lots of vintage variation, or do you have general kind of the climate is similar year on year? Is there a lot of variation between your vintages in the DAO?
There are some differences between vintage for the next year, but 2017 was a very hot and dry year. Of course,
But anyway, thank you so much for your time. Really excited to share this wine and the insightfulness and the knowledge of yourself and the winery in the region with our viewers next Wednesday night.
Welcome back.
Fantastic.
Sorry about that.
It's wonderful to get winemakers back in, and because we can talk about it all day, but they are there, hands in the field, making the wine, telling the stories, and make it what it needs to be. And just great that you stop throwing stuff on the floor. You're not going to be. Would anyone like to come and guest host with me so we can move him on? As far as bottles will be on the website. We thought we'd try something a little bit different today, rather than put them all up on the website first, because people sneak in and look for the prices. Because we've got some really, really fun, cool stuff on this. What we're going to do is we'll
get them up a bit later tonight.
We're going to send everybody, all you lovely, lovely people who have joined us, an email with all the wines and all the prices and a discount code. So don't buy them tonight. Wait for the discount code would be my thing. Indeed. Unless you really love us and want to pay full price or double price. However you want to do it.
So we're not gonna give away the pricings, although we will give away that one of the wines Jamie made a bit of a schoolboy error on. So when you buy wines, when you're buying wines as a wine merchant, you don't get a bottle price. You get a
case price.
A case price. And how many bottles are in the case of wine?
Generally 6 or 12.
6 or 12, exactly. So, how many were in this case when you thought that's actually quite good value for the wine that we're talking about?
Less than 6 or 12?
Yeah, 3. So the wine was twice as expensive as we thought. But one of these wines,
but it's in and it's bought and it's in your pack. So
you've had a treat. So happy times for all of you lot. We should move on.
You got to let me know if you can pick out which one is double the price to any of the other ones, though.
That's true. That would be very telling. But this was Quinta dos Carvalhais. Is that right? I think that was roughly how you pronounce it. I hate the fact that you're giving all these things pronounced, but it's great wine. So excellent. Let's move it on to wine number 4. Or should we have that? Let's have that last glance at the full tasting notes. We've got lots of vanilla from the oak, leathery, toffee, tobacco, burnt cherry. Some of the characteristics coming through. But absolutely delicious wine.
I think this is one of the wines when people talk about a wine being complex, it doesn't mean that it's got to be big and bold and smash you in the face and be over the top or anything like this. It has all these different notes from the primary to the second to the tertiary.
There's lots of things to pick out, which means it's interesting. It doesn't mean that simpler wines are bad. It just means it's very interesting. You can find lots of things to talk about, which is obviously quite cool for people who are geeking out about wine. But anyway, and generally speaking, those more complex wines go better with food and provide just a little bit more. But the funny thing is that as wines get older, they start to taste a bit more similar because you start losing the things that came from the grape and you're more dominated by what the winemaker did and what the aging process has done. So it can be quite hard to pick out a wine that's a bit older. It's all a bit masked by the age. This, we said we've talked about the grapes. Touriga Nacional. if that keeps going, I might mistake it for a Bordeaux. And coincidentally, Touriga Nacional, which was one of the key grapes of port, is now allowed in Bordeaux wines. So this thing that's come from the hotter part of the world, as the climate's warming up, you're finding it in classic French wines, this classic Portuguese grape. And that's cool.
You're getting excited for discovery.
I'm getting excited. Yeah, I'm getting very excited. Anyway, let's move it on to the next wine. Are you dropping things now?
Always.
Okay, so wine number 4. We were getting a few people like...
Yes, everyone's finished wine number 4 and you've said nothing about wine number 4.
I love this. So we have the fact that wine is so personal. We have barely any fruit flavours. It feels very smoky. Straight on to, I'm getting a lot of fruit flavours. And that is wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful because everybody's palate is different. Everybody's tongue is made up differently and detects different flavours.
Portuguese hipster wine. That's epic. That is epic. So, who doesn't love a bit of bastardo, though?
Yeah,
So-
I mean, there's a fairly good long list of grapes in this one.
So this is called Castas Escondidas, and that translates as hidden varieties. And hence it has got, basically everything in it. It's a kitchen sink thing, but it's got 18% field blend.
So a field blend is you have no idea.
The
You
stuff
bring
that they
everything
don't
in,
quite
you
know.
Stick it in the press.
And usually, a winery will just make, hey, this is the field blend, this is everything, it's done. But they've got 18% field blend that they not quite sure exactly what that is. And then, 8 other grapes that they can identify and bring in. I feel very sorry for poor Naomi having to find a font size to make that work in the tasting brochure.
Bless her.
So we are up in the Douro now, and Douro is famous for port. That's the kind of the port.
Oh, that is cool. I like that.
But you're going up to the north and going inland, so going east.
Shall I
So
get the map up again?
You can bring the map back up.
Let's get the map.
Absolutely.
Bring it back.
So we're going above the Dow, but you can see, there's a long area, and the River Douro runs through there, and it's a really interesting place to see. That on one side of the river, it's all these kind of like tunnels, like these hydroponic tunnels, and then on the other side is the port houses, which is where what they do is they store their port in what's called a pipe, which is usually about 500 litres, if not bigger. And people used to buy, for special occasions when their kids were born or something like that, they buy a pipe of port because it
Did
ages.
Peter Piper buy a port of
Picks a
pipe
porter,
of
pepper,
port?
porter, picker,
Yeah.
porter. Yeah, something like that.
But sorry, I interrupted you there. So there's a pipe of port that they're resting in these massive warehouses, all on the south side of the river. The north side's where all the cool stuff, all the people are, and then you go across and it's wine country. It's great.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a different plot here, different plot there, and it's all these cool grapes that you really see very rarely anywhere else. And I think this is hugely important because they could rip it all up and plant Merlot and do really well with it, make loads of money out of it. But if you traveled the world and everywhere did that, if everyone ripped up and go, this is the new cool thing, so let's rip up all the Primitivo and plant, I don't know, Shiraz or Malbec.
One of the supermarkets started selling the wines by the grape that it was. So you had the Merlot aisle, you had the Pinot Noir aisle, you had the Chardonnay aisle. Where exactly was the aisle for Old Vine Field Blend, Tinta Amarella, Touriga Familia, Tinta Francisca? Yeah, you get the point.
Oh, that's a little bit on the end.
Yeah, in other. And nobody goes to the other bit, do they? They go to the grape variety. And actually, it was an experiment, and they found out it wasn't a success because everyone just went to the Merlot aisle and price compared and bought the cheapest. And you end up then just
second cheap.
Or the second cheap. Well, the second cheap is what you buy at a restaurant. I think in a supermarket, you buy what's on the biggest special offer, don't you? And we all do it, and we all know it's a con, and we just do it anyway.
I only buy my wines from the online wine tasting club.
Or Tring Winery. Very good.
Sorry, was it?
Yeah,
No,
that was a good plug.
I was that
Good
overdone.
plug.
Overdone.
Good plug. But I think that's one of the coolest wines that I've tasted on all of our tastings. Actually, is it the best wine? Well, it's a good wine. It's a really good wine, but it's the most distinctive.
This one,
nice
once again,
wine.
touch of age on it. We're 2018 here, so we've got a little bit of touch of age, a little bit of spice, And it does, and I'm going to go back to what I said previously, that having that fruit, that spice, that tertiary, clove,
Cloves,
tannin, pepper,
yeah.
barbecue. I like barbecue. Mm.
That would go so well with barbecue food, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Like, just that
Slow roasted meat.
slow
and
roasted meat with a little bit of the fattiness.
This,
going
when you get up early in the morning, get
Yeah.
your pork shoulder on your egg, and then or your beef
Have you
brisket.
got an egg?
No,
I don't have an egg.
no.
either.
If anyone wants to buy me an egg for my 40th birthday, I'll take donations. So
Yeah. I'll buy you. I'll give you one of my chicken's eggs if that's any better. But they're very little because my chickens are still quite little. That's irrelevant. Completely irrelevant.
So if we stopped every time you said something that was irrelevant, we'd have a 6.5 hour
We
show.
are struggling. For time, I should go back to the chat and see what everyone's doing. We've got lots of people who are saying it's spicy and enjoyable. What makes it so distinctive? That's a fantastic question. I mean, for me, it's that I don't recognise the flavours. I think from the looks of it, everyone's struggling a bit to get the flavours in a way that in a language that they understand. I don't know what I'm tasting there.
I think that's where you're at. That every time you go back, you find something else. It feels a bit different. A bit. Was it the same wine? Is it a different wine? Is it this? And I think that's where you've got all these little bits, and you've got these grapes that we've not had before. And if it was a blend, you take a Bordeaux blend,
Yeah.
You can. I'm not saying you should, but you can, once you've tasted for a little while, you can pick up a Bordeaux and go, I feel that's Merlot dominant, or that's Cab dominant, and then you work out your tasting notes going, that's going to be like this, that's going to be like that, that's going to be like that. Magda, your point here, I'm just going to jump in on alcohol here. What you've got with this, they've got that lucky, that as I mentioned earlier, because of the altitude, they have such a sway in temperature in the evening that it's not hot all the time.
No.
But where it is hot, you've got the options of, you can have a lone growing season and you can get yourself done and sorted and have as much alcohol as you want. But because you're warm and cool, you have the option to pick a little bit early if you want to, with still a ripeness of flavour, which allows you to manage where your alcohol is. Is everything creeping up a bit? Absolutely, but that's a worldwide thing.
So I think, and I absolutely agree. You're totally right. But these grapes have evolved in the place. So they evolved in a hot place. They've. It's not like you've just transplanted in a Merlot or something, or a Pinot Noir that would die there. Just don't. These are grapes that grew up in a hot-ish place that does cool down at night, like you say. And that is why you probably don't have to pick it too early. But because there are we've got another great comment is that Hannah says there's no fruit on the tasting notes until, of course, there was fruit just immediately after she said that. But absolutely, when you blend a lot of very different grapes together, you don't get that massive distinctive hit of one set of fruit aromas or flavors that stick out, don't you?
Yeah.
It's its own thing, and
the things
very cool.
The things that jump out are the cloves, the spice, the chewiness. Before I get too geeky, because people will yell at me because it's discoverers. Talking about the grapes adapted. So we've got grapes that grew up there and do very, very well. Yeah. But you also see if you've got the same grape in different places, you will see where it's very, very hot.
Mm-hmm.
The same grape compared to where it's cooler will actually develop naturally a thicker skin to protect itself from the sun and sunburn, and therefore a thicker skin takes longer to ripen and can protect itself. So the same grape in different places will adapt over time to its surroundings, and therefore you have this opportunity for them not to get as big and rich,
I agree.
unless that's the style they're looking for.
I think we should cut one of the interviews because we're running a bit late. Should we very quickly show, because we've got, as always in the Discover series, we have been bringing you updates from our partner winery in Argentina. And we were so lucky because for the very first chance, we had the opportunity to meet the wonderful Kathy, who says that she's running a bit late because she was having a dinner tonight, wasn't she?
She was.
A very posh dinner. And we finally got to meet her and, see the El Passion stand and taste a couple of their wines that we hadn't tasted before. And it was really cool. So that was all at the London Wine Fair.
Just go back to that very quickly. He wears shirts like that in public. It's not just for the show.
It's not just for the show. I mean, isn't that awful? And there was a time where actually you'd have spent half the time taking the piss out of me, and I wear this and it's gentle ribbing now. But they have sent us a video because this is another critical time of the year, and they're bottling. They wanted to send a video through showing their Chardonnay from fermentation, which is the new vintage that's just come in, through to bottling the last years. So let's have a quick look at that video because it's a really cool little update from El Passion in Argentina.
Fantastic.
Hi, my name is Kathy. I'm one of the founders and investors in El Passion Vineyard, which is located in the UK Valley in Mendoza, Argentina. And I'm also a member of the Online Wine Tasting Club, and I'm based here in the UK. What I'm going to do is to provide you with an update from the vineyard, which we're doing every month. This month our new bottling line has arrived and has been used for the very first time. We will follow our Chardonnay from fermentation through to bottling. Clean juice has been transferred to French oak barrels and yeast is being measured and added for alcoholic fermentation to take place. Barrel fermentation takes place at 10 to 12 degrees C approximately. Once alcoholic fermentation is finished, wine is aged for 12 months in the same barrel it was fermented in. It's matured on its lees with weekly lees stirring. This gives the wine texture and smoother mouthfeel. Wine is then transferred from barrels to tanks for blending, clarification and filtration, and then bottling.
So the new Chardonnay, the 2022, part of it is in tanks, part of it is already in barrels, but what we're tasting now is in 2021. So the previous vintage, which was initially in tanks, then in oak for 12 months,
and then back in
and
steel?
then back in tanks to blend it all,
To blend. Okay.
and then bottle.
So you do the blending in the steel?
In the stainless steel, and they stabilize it with cold. Yes, that's why you see that this tank is much colder. So let's.
Previously we hired a mobile bottling line to come to the winery to bottle the wine for us. Now we can bottle when we want to rather than having to book a slot to bottle. This means we are able to bottle at exactly the right time and do small runs to meet demand if needed. The bottle is first rinsed and flushed with inert gas to make sure it's sterile. The bottle is then filled with wine. Air is removed from the bottle and a compressed cork closure is added. This ensures there is no oxygen in the bottle. Ezequiel and Miguel are proudly showing you the first 2021 Chardonnay bottles. I've been at the London Wine Fair at Olympia this week. We've got an El Passion stand at this trade fair to introduce more importers and retailers to the El Passion range of wines. Next month will be my 12th monthly update from the vineyard, so I'll have covered a whole year with you. I look forward to seeing you all next month.
Huge thanks to Kathy for that, and it was great to meet her. Their wines, if you haven't been with us, we're going to get some more in soon because they're so good. It's such a fun project, like a whole group of different friends who just came together to do a fun project on the other side of the world. I love it. It's
and
great.
lovely wines from not entry level, but very affordable to super premium, and little stages you go up in between. So there's an El Passion wine for every. And as I say things like that, we say that because we love the wines. We're not paid to do it. We're not on any bonuses.
There's no relationship like that on this. And I think one of the really key things, occasionally when you get winemakers on, they talk in terms that perhaps not everyone knows. Why would a wine not be stable? because you have to stabilize it.
I'm
And
not.
that's cold stabilize it.
I'm not stable.
No,
I've got a lot of wine in me.
That's a very fair point. Yeah.
So the London Wine Show, that question just popped up. It's a trade event, so you've got to be.
Yeah.
It's not. I wish we could take all our friends and buddies and all that kind of stuff. We just should start the online wine tasting club wine.
Yeah, because
fair.
a membership of the online wine tasting club classes you as trade. I would say that would be a good thing.
I think that would be the
But
way
yeah,
to do
so
it.
cold stabilization of the wine. Right. Okay. Have you ever put a wine in your fridge and you find little kind of crystals of something that are a bit crunchy?
Wine diamonds.
Wine diamonds. So what they do is effectively...
While he yabbers on, get wine 5 in your
While I
glass.
yabber on. They put the wine, they cool it down, so these little harmless kind of salt crystals of potassium tartrate, if you want me to go geeky, it doesn't matter. They go out, they come into, they form in the wine in that big tank, so it doesn't form in your fridge. That's what cold stabilization is doing. It's just getting those stupid little things that are going to make your wine experience a bit crunchy and less than pleasant. And they do it in the winery. An OWTC show live. Yes, please.
Yes, it's on the list.
It's on the card.
On our last show, we kind of announced we wanted to do it. We need ideas of where we should come, where we should go. Where would you like? Do you want to come to Tring and see us?
Yeah.
Or should we get on the road and get to London or Birmingham or
Okay.
Manchester?
So if
Or at a
anyone
vineyard?
wants to come to the Only Way is Essex show, Saturday the 18th, the first day of English Wine Week this year,
Come here.
come here
Let
and
us-
we'll take the microphone around and we'll interview you and we'll do that and we'll work that out.
But
in
let us know you're
advance.
coming because we've only
Let us
got
know.
that little
We've
space
got
behind
a
us.
couple.
So yeah,
Yeah.
if anyone wants,
Come to Tring.
if anyone wants to come to Tring,
Yeah.
30 minutes from Euston on the train, and
Exactly.
we'll have the bottle. Everyone wants London.
Totally. Come down. Yeah. No. Well, not some Londons, of course. But yeah.
London.
Okay. Let's talk wine 5.
Tring's basically London.
Alentejo.
So-
Tejo is the river.
It is.
And Alan
Is
is
Alan-
my uncle. Alan.
No, don't do that. Anyway, so we're down in the south, so southern wine region, but Alentejo goes basically all the way to the coast, all the way across. It's the big. It's not the most under vine, but it's the biggest wine region of Portugal. Absolutely fantastic area, and they make everything very, very light, fresh whites, big, heavy reds, and everything in between. We've got a fantastic interview with Luis, which we will show. But the point I'm going to make before we stick this on is this is made with a grape Alicante Bouschet. And Alentejo, really, Alicante Bouschet is at home there. But it's very, very different to most other grapes that we use to make wine.
It is.
Because when we talk about, for anyone who's doing a bit of WSETing, and we turn around and go, where do you get the colour from in a red grape? Everyone will shout and go, it's from the skins.
Yeah.
However,
Apart from this one.
Alicante Bouschet, you cut the grape open,
The
and it's one of
juice
the
just
very
bright
few
red.
grapes in the world
Yeah.
that has this bright red, purpley flesh.
And it explodes in your mouth.
Mouth. And,
Which is great. And, not
and no need to be unhappy about that. But anyway, while things are exploding in people's mouths, we should probably go to the interview.
We should. Yeah, but, we said we were going to cut it, but actually Jamie taught me how to. We're going to rush over the port because it's port in it.
Okay, anyway.
Okay, let's get the interview up, which means I need to add it. Thanks for that. Giving me the time. Talk a little more just for 1 second.
Oh,
no, it's fine. Here we go.
It's fine,
So,
it's fine.
to the interview.
My name is Mishka Ahmed. I studied agronomy, and then I made a graduation in enology in Australia. And nowadays, last year I made 30 years in wine, in a professional way, because before became a winemaker, I was wine lover. First wine lover, then winemaker. And I began in the north of Portugal, in the region. And then I went to Argentina. And since 2004, 2012, I was responsible for Finca Fishman Wines in Mendoza. And after that, with family, we needed to return to Portugal. And the Getz family said to me, no, you need to help us to increase the quality of the wines in our Alentejo region. and was definitely a big challenge. And since 2012 until now, we changed a lot our way of making wine in Alentejo. How? First of all, understanding the region. The region is in the south. It's the biggest wine region in a biggest wine country region in not the big in vineyards, but very big in size between Lisbon and Algarve. For me, is the most sustainable wine region in Portugal, because the weather helps us, because we have less people there. Is definitely one of the most beautiful wine regions in Portugal. Lots of castles. Is a warm region with lots of water. Also in our sub-region, in Herdade do Peso, our Herdade do Peso in sub-region of Vidigueira. Vidigueira is one of the sub-regions, and we are 70 kilometers far away from the sea.
Tell me how you feel about trying to get people into trying these wines, because there's a lot of indigenous grapes, a lot of grapes that you only hear about in Portugal, the Touriga Nacional, the Roriz, those kind of grapes. Do you find it helps a little bit? Because obviously the wine we've got today, it's got a little bit of Petit Verdot in, a little bit of Syrah in. Having those international grapes in the mix, does that help awareness, or does it not really make much difference? Do we just need to shout at people and tell them, just drink more Portuguese wine?
Well, Alentejo, first of all, Alentejo is a very old region, because I remember from Roman time, which means 2,000 years ago, we began making wine in amphoras. Also in Herdade do Peso, we are producing wine in amphora, in clay amphoras, with near 2,000 liters or liters each. And with that history, with that heritage, is very old, but in Portugal we say is the new world of Portugal. It's the new world of Portugal, because after 1974, our revolution, before that we have no conditions, political conditions to produce wine in the quantity. And after that is new world of Portugal, because after that we could plant the vines we have, and with that is new world, because some of the international varieties arrived, which for us are very important. But for example, in that wine we are talking, which is Reserve Herdade do Peso Reserve 2018 to 2018, is mainly Alicante Puxive, but we have small touch of Syrah and Petit Verdot. Syrah was one of the traditional international varieties which arrived very early in Alentejo, are very important, but nowadays, for example, we have one of the biggest vineyard of Touriga Nacional in the south of Portugal. We have 28 hectares of Touriga Nacional, which is different from the north, but gives you freshness, gives you length in mouth, and are very important. But to answer to you, Petit Verdot for us is very important. Also, Tinta Miúda belongs to Portugal. For us, Alicante Boucher is the aim of Alentejo, with Touriga Nacional and small touch of other varieties. Could be Portuguese like Tinta Miúda, or could be Petit Verdot, or could be Syrah, or small amount of Cabernet Sauvignon. Small touch which gives you a difference. It's an incredible region where you could produce incredible wines, international wines, with Portuguese and international or French varieties if you want. Alicante Boucher in Herdade do Peso is a generous variety, generous in the quality because gives you body, gives you maturation. Maturation is definitely in the south of Alentejo, in the region where we are in Vinigara, are very nice. Gives you body, gives you color, nice color. It's very important. In body, full body. And after that, with Petit Verdot and the Syrah, we gives you structure. But, for example, in 18, we had some vats of Alicante Boucher. We fermented in a traditional way, what it means, with part of stems. Stems in Alicante Boucher. Normally, Alicante Boucher is a well-matured grape in our sub-region, in our property. And with matured stems, gives you structure, gives you length in mouth also. Alicante Boucher is I think you can't have a Alentejo red wine without Alicante Boucher. Jeremy, thank you very much, and see you and good health with the good wines.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
And we're back. I hope you enjoyed listening to him. A really interesting guy.
My favourite thing is,
Cool wine.
you know, I asked them the question, you know, oh, there's lots of other things happening, and you know, what else important? It's like, oh no, just come to us. Alentejo's got everything. No need to go anywhere else.
Don't go anywhere else. Yeah.
Don't do that. Stay here. So
Don't do that. Do these.
it's really exciting to start to talk to these people again, and you know, the idea of being able to actually get out and travel and get to the vineyards, and you know, the stories that we try and tell really put into real life for people.
Wait, we've got some very knowledgeable people on, but for those who perhaps have just heard of port, and there's a thing that their granddad drank, and you know, what is port? Other than the place, which is obviously the city of Porto.
Wine.
Thanks.
Oh, were you
Captain
looking-
freaking obvious?
Okay, so
Great.
when we talk about wine, we've got
That's why he gets paid the big bucks, isn't it? Yeah.
like and subscribe. We should have one of those Patreon things, shouldn't we?
We should. No.
But anyway, so we've got three main styles of wine. We've got stills,
Yep.
we've got sparklings,
Yep.
and then we've got fortifieds. So port, sherry, Madeira are all what are classed as fortified wine. And what that is basically because
They were fed their spinach.
Brits were basically alcoholics, and we went around the world and we liked a certain wine and we tried to take it around the world on a boat, and by the time it got there, it was not quite as good. That was
There's a technical term for
technical
that.
term for that,
Screwed.
which is bollocks.
It was screwed. Yes, that's even better.
So not only did we think, oh, there's a better way to fix that, we thought the best way to fix it is add more
Alcohol.
booze.
More booze.
So what they would take is they take these, you know, it really, you know, sherry and port kind of started around the same time, 1200s, and you
The
take
seafaring times.
you make your still wine as you normally make it, and then you take a grape brandy and add it to your still wine to bring the alcohol up to act as a preservative.
Mhm.
You know, when you look at somewhere like sherry, you can have dry, you can have medium, you can have sweet, because it depends on what point you put in. Port, you could technically have a dry port if you wanted to, but it's not really made in that style. It's designed to be a sweet style of drink. Then you've got, you know, and I'm not going to go into the deeper.
Mostly because of the British palate at the time. We loved sweet stuff.
Exactly, and
You
we
know?
still do. We just pretend we
Yeah,
don't.
we pretend we don't. Yeah.
You know, and then there's lots of different styles, and we'll do a port masterclass one day that you'll hear of things called like rubies and tawnies
Yeah.
and LBVs and crusters and vintage and stuff like that.
This is
This-
a 20-year-old.
This is a tawny.
Yeah.
So rubies are generally, and if there's anyone on here who makes port and loves port, I'm generally, so please don't shout at me, are generally that kind of deep red, rich, fruity, jammy style of port, that kind of all day, every day drinking port. Tawnies are named because of their colour, and it's about this level of oxidation that happens to it, that they allow oxygen to get in there, and that's what and you get this beautiful tawny colour, hence why it's a tawny port. You get this
Makes
grapefruit, this lovely nuttiness to it, and then it is age stamped. So it takes that long to make it. So you have 10 years in a barrel before it goes in the bottle.
And that's why they've got all of those massive warehouses.
20 years in a
It's
barrel
gotta sit
before
there
it
for
goes in the
20
bottle.
years.
And I think, and it's probably very, very common to a lot, but it's the same as whiskey. That if I've got a bottle of 20-year-old port,
Mhm.
and I keep it for 5 years, I still have a bottle of 20-year-old port. I don't have a bottle of 25-year-old port, because once the port goes into the bottle, it really
stops
doesn't
aging,
do
basically,
much else. Basically, port is designed to be done once it goes into the bottle. The other thing I'll say about port, and Sandeman's are fantastic, and if you've been with us for a while, they make sherry as well, and we've done a tasting with George Sandeman, which is fantastic. If you want to jump back, and that's a dry sherry. A lot of people go, port lasts forever. Or I can have a bottle of port and I can drink it over the next 7 years and nothing will go. Port does fade. It really does. It just, because it's biological and it's a wine, it does slowly deteriorate. It just deteriorates less quickly. And less noticeable. But I would say if you open a bottle of this today, and if you drink it in 6 months still, it will still be quite delicious.
Yeah.
And maybe not noticeably, oh, that's gone bad. It's not that. But if you then opened it to something, you opened up another fresh bottle and did it side by side, you'd see a marked difference between the two.
Where you go around to your granddad's house and the same bottle has been open for the last 5 years, that's
next to the Harvey's Bristol Cream.
Next to the Harvey's Bristol Cream, exactly. Yeah, that it won't be quite in its best condition. It helps preserve against some kind of damage, but not all kinds of damage. So yeah, drink a bit quicker. It's a lovely drink, and to be honest, it's not actually. While it is a bit more alcoholic than normal wines, the lines are blurred. Like some of the stronger wines, particularly from hot countries, Australia, California, well, that's not a country, but they are pushing into that kind of 17, 18%. And this is like sort of 19, 20%. So it's not that different.
Absolutely. And there's also a new kind of, I say new, it was old, then it was new, then it's old. And, everything's just coming around to things. To drink your tawny port slightly chilled.
Yeah.
This idea of drinking, because it always, for me, growing up into it was like, it was that kind of like room temperature red wine that you had, even slightly warm with a bit of cheese at the end of the night. But you can drink like these ports as an aperitif at the beginning of a meal almost. Just sat outside, sunshine. I used to say sat outside sunshine. I'm in the wrong country for this, aren't I?
For sure. I sat outside the Taylor's port.
Your port
place. My port. Absolutely. I've got to claim full credit for that because no reason. But it has this beautiful view out, and you've got the river running through it, and the Douro, in fact, and this incredible bridge that was not designed by Eiffel. It was inspired by it. So it's basically inspired by the Eiffel Tower. It's a cool bridge, and you can sit outside. And they brought out all this great food and these slightly chilled ports, and you do a flight of different vintages. The 5-year-old, the 10-year-old, 20-year-old, the Tawnies, and it was a fantastic experience. So if you are in Porto, do check it out. Do go to the port wineries. They're great experiences to go and see.
Yeah, absolutely. So just before we kind of go through onto, have we got what people liked for this evening?
We can do that. Should we pop up wines tonight?
So while we pop up wines tonight, I'm just going to quick run through of what's going on in the world with us. We did London Wine Fair. We found lots of new cool things to drink.
We
Lots
found
of new
some
cool stuff.
Great wines.
We found a honey badger wine
from Ukraine.
Well, it's actually a spirit. It was. Honestly, it's god awful. You guys aren't ever going to get it in your pouches. But we tried it and we tasted it and we supported. Yeah. But what do we got? So next week we're doing Towie, All Wines Essex for our Adventure series. For those of you who join us on both, some really, really cool stuff.
Don't be put off by the name. Don't be put off by the name. I know the program is awful. I've never seen it. I don't want to see it. But whatever. We that is one thing. But the wines from Essex aren't all made in Essex. And this is what the slightly strange thing about it is. It turns out that Essex is the British wine industry's dirty secret because no one wants to say wine of Essex. And yet, wineries as far away as Cornwall buy the majority of their grapes from Essex. Like there's one very famous one that I'm not going to name because I don't want to embarrass them because clearly they don't want it to be public knowledge. But that so many wineries buy their grapes for their high-end still wines from Essex and East Anglia.
You're giving away the info. You'll have nothing to talk about next Saturday. You'll have told everybody everything. So yeah, so we've got that going on. Next month on our series, we're doing Sicily.
Check out those teeth. Nice work, Mr. Smith. Nice work.
You guys have too much free time over at the office when I'm not there. Anyway, can we get rid of that, please?
Yes.
So what do we got next month? So next month we're doing Sicily for our discoverers, and
Yep.
we're doing Tuscany for our adventurers. My kind of reminiscing my 5 days of in Italy. So there's some really cool, fun stuff. Both out of Sicily, which is great, interesting. Once again, lots of indigenous
Cool
wines,
place.
lots of volcanic soil, really good drinkable stuff,
Yeah.
and some really good value wines. And then
And
we're
the
playing.
worst driving in the entire universe.
Alex will tell.
I'll tell
Alex
tales.
will tell tales of walking up Etna the wrong way and
Well,
whatever.
well,
But that's
Yeah.
and then
Great
Tuscany,
place.
Chianti, Montalcino. Can I say more?
What more could you want? I mean,
Ex-
that's going to be epic. So
Exactly.
yeah,
So
and
we're
we've
doing that,
tasted through
and
a
then
few amazing ones.
come the summer, we're taking a break, August. But you don't need to take a break because we're going to pre-record
it.
the tastings and get them out to you.
Yeah.
We're going to do some South Africa, and we're going to send it out with some ideas of how you can do a South African
Yeah.
barbecue at home. And then we're
Some
just
links to buy some cool ingredients.
and then we're just going to have our top picks, which should be great for you and really not very good for our back pockets. But I hope you've had a wonderful night. Sorry it took a couple of minutes to get us going at the beginning, but we are here. We're back in Tring, and hopefully the internet is a little bit better here. So we're getting resettled to where we first started. And yeah, we'll see you out on the road. If you want to come to Tring, let us know. We're here. Come and sit in, drink wine with us.
Anyone who's at the London Wine Fair tomorrow, if you happen to be there, we'll be on the When in Rome stand. So yeah,
he will.
I will.
I'm going to New Orleans.
It's a tough life. Thank you so much. I hope you've had a great night, and we will see you hopefully very soon indeed.
Have a wonderful night.
Good
Cheers.
night all. Take care.